to Cape Palmer, mountain back to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Bokonjre, to educate, elevate, and promote. Yeah, focus on Liberia, for Liberia, Liberia, for Liberia, yeah. From Monday to Sunday. From Monday to Sunday, it's focused on Liberia. Talk about home affairs, in diaspora, current affairs, reliable information. Education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a fresh edition of Between the Headlines on Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jah, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In tonight's edition of Between the Headlines, we're going to be looking at the possibility of having a war crimes court in Liberia. Well, the signs are getting a little clearer that a war crimes court may come to Liberia. We're going to talk about that. And also, we watched drama at NASCORP. To sort this all out, I have invited some of the best minds among us here, starting with our governance advisor, Mr. Ahmed K. Salif. Mr. Salif, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dennis. As always, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you. Let me welcome Attorney Wanda Konyene Freeman, an economist, accountant, and also an attorney. Mr. Freeman, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Let me welcome the political bulldog. That's the host of the Hour of Politics right here on Focus on Liberia, Mr. Anthony Sie. Mr. Sie, welcome to the show.
Donna, thanks. It's good to be here. I look forward to the discussion.
We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. This is Focus on Liberia, and we are Between the Headlines. Mr. Mansfield Duopu is also here, but he's having some issue here connecting. So, Mr. Duopu, as soon as you get that right, connect your camera, and we should be able to have you on the screen. Mr. Duopu is our global affairs analyst, and he's right here. He also has worked with NASSCORP. So when we saw the drama at NASSCORP, who's better person to give us some perspective than Comrade Duopu? Gentlemen, welcome to the show. We are all happy to have you on Between the Headlines. It all started in President Boakai's inaugural address when he mentioned War Crimes Court. Later, we saw a tape floating on the internet where Alan White purportedly talking to President Boakai about war crimes in Liberia and the establishment of the War Crimes Court. That tape has not been authenticated, but war crimes is in there. We also see that the speaker is meeting with the ambassador at large. And of late, today, the House of Representatives, they signed a resolution for the establishment of War Crimes Code, 40% signed. So all these things are going on. We also saw the drama at NASCORP. And let's start with the NASCORP, and I'm going to play you a tape of what happened at NASCORP. And if there's anything short of drama, maybe you be my witness.
There was no official communication sent to NASCORP. There hadn't been an official communication placed on website. So like this. So I told him that, and he said you all were coming. So I said, okay, then we can re-adjourn the meeting.
So you want to adjourn the meeting?
No, I mean this is why we adjourn the meeting. Because I told him that, and he said we'll wait on you people. Now that you people have come, I will read into what Dewey has said. And Father has said he should reconfirm with the Executive Mansion. Dewey has been informed that he is still in charge of NASCORP. So Councilor Connor should reconfirm with him. And he has not received any official letter or have seen it to the Executive Mansion website. So going forward, let me call Dewey. He's on the line, so we can speak with him officially.
Is it necessary to do contact?
No, that's a problem. It's not.
Yeah.
So that's the president.
Yeah, honorable.
We
are on. No, it's better we.
No, it's not necessary. You already relayed the message to us.
Oh, here we are in a meeting.
So many of we don't want the president to send communication, official communication. It's not sufficient.
Senator Boyu, can you just let us talk to it and speak with them? It's not quite regular line.
No, they won't know that.
What do you guys want? You want a letter from the...
Good morning, I'm going to put you on speaker, so
For the minister said, that's
I can tell you right.
I don't even know the that's signature.
But you
Honorable Babamos,
We can't go there. No. I mean, we can't subject us to that. I mean, we just.
you don't have to do
You
this.
don't have to do that. He's got a piece of information. If you don't honor it,
Yeah.
that's all right. You can go and the authority that sent him will still follow the right procedure. We don't have to do that. We are not in any confrontation. So.
Hello?
So, sir,
Okay, you say, you talking?
Yeah.
we brought this letter
They brought a
from
letter
the
from the president.
the president's signature. I'm the chairman of the party. This is a senior senator of Bond County, Obapo. We are all eminent citizens of this country. We will not bring something that is liable to falsification. We will not do that. If we present it to you, and for any reason you don't honor it, I don't want to honor it, then let us know.
Relay the message.
We'll relay the message to the
folks.
folks.
NASCORP.
I think all is good. Is that the introduction of Mr. Khaled from the Ministry of State issue. And it's mixed.
Is the letter not sufficient, sir? Just let us know if it's not sufficient. That's all we need.
Honorable Joe Babamo has said that he hadn't received a communication from the president. That I'm quoting directly about wanting him to speak with you and say what he had told me. That he had not received a communication from the Executive Mansion. He had not seen any official communication on the Executive Mansion website. And he has spoken to the mansion and he had been told he is still in charge of NASCORP. That's why he told me to relate to you people. So this is why I'm calling for him to say instead of me saying you have to listen to it.
Well, thank you for relieving us.
We didn't go to the mountain and make it right. And all right, one.
That's why.
Thank you.
All right, that was the tape of what happened at NASCORP. Mr. CA, just for the benefit of people that may not follow the story, what did you see?
Well, then I saw Luther Tappe, the chairman of Unity Party. I also saw in the video Senator Prince Kemal Moy of Bond County. Senator Moy, I know, served as the campaign manager for the Unity Party in Bond County. So he purported himself as the one who delivered Bond County to the Unity Party. I understand he was so instrumental in helping the Unity Party in Bond County. He is one of the guys who actually have the ears of the president. He has been so influential in recommending people and ensuring that these people get appointed. One of his successes is that he succeeded in making his wife to become a member of the board. So this man is so influential. Oh, thank you. His fiancée?
No, I say at LPRC.
At LPRC, thank you. Yeah. So now you have Amin Modar there, who is the former chairman of Unity Party, now Minister of Commerce. So the people you see there are officials of Unity Party, including a senator for that matter, Prince Moy, and Boto Kane, who I understand is a senator of Bapulu County, if I'm not mistaken. So they went there at NASCORP to ensure that somebody, according to them, who was nominated by President Bouaka, takes office. And now the officer in charge there at NASCORP is saying, well, we don't have, to our knowledge, any appointment for this position for which you brought the individual and he's saying this person should take office. You know, if the person was appointed to our knowledge, it will have official communication from the office of the president, we will allow this to happen. But as far as we know, there is no communication to that effect. So I'm not sure how we're going to do this. And you could see there, they were trying to say, well, we brought you communication from the president, from the office of the president. If you don't believe us, then I don't know what else you're looking for. And the lady there insisted, no, when the president nominates somebody, it's made public, it's either on the e-mansion website or maybe on the official Facebook page of the executive mansion. Nothing like that we have seen. So I don't think this is going to happen. And so they had to shamefully and disgracefully walk away. Why would a party chairman, why would a senator, be part of something like this? Then that's what happened.
And those are your words, shamefully and disgracefully.
Those are my words. And
that's how you see it. Let me go to Mr. Attorney Freeman here, because NASCORP, I believe, also is a Tenure place, right? So what's going on here?
Well, it's very unfortunate what we saw on display, and surprisingly, I saw two lawyers there. Firstly, even on a political level, there should be some communication to where you're going so that there can be an ease of transition into office. But on the legal side, I want to highlight the issue that when the party chairman introduced his people, he didn't introduce them as party officials, but rather as senators. And I also find that troubling because as senators, they should refrain from acting in executive matters. And that is enshrined in Article 3 of the Liberian Constitution, that nobody serving in one branch should exercise power in the other branch. That's part of the reason why you see the Senate has not been effective in doing their due diligence when it comes to vetting recommended people or nominated people, because they are deeply involved in the nomination process. So they have rendered meaningless the issue of confirmation hearing. But I guess over the course of the discussion, we'll speak more to the issue of the tenure position, because I have compiled a list of cases that shows that the Supreme Court has confirmed and reconfirmed the issue of tenure position. So it's almost likely that the government is not going to succeed with that action of theirs.
Thank you, Mr. Salif. One of those who are present there is the Commerce Minister, Amin Modar. And so people started saying, Amin, what are you doing there? So he posted this. He said, yesterday I was invited to NASCORP at short notice with the sole purpose of supporting a seamless professional process. As far as I was concerned, an officer in charge is not a permanent assignment, and there were no political motives or intent to disrepute anyone. However, It is unfortunate that it was not managed properly in the spirit of the positive intent and has been politicized. DeWitt Van Boop Moles and Councillor Moifi Kamara are two fine gentlemen and professionals whom I'm confident will go past the ensuing mediocrity and politics. It appears to me that this was supposed to be, or they look at it as a turnover ceremony. I mean, you be in government, you know these things. Is it a normal practice?
Now, there's several things that are happening over there, and some of which are glaring to only those who, I guess, are close to those individuals you saw. There were siblings who went to support a sibling. Anthony, you don't recognize my senator from Bapulu. I took offense to that. Senator Boto Kane is a sister to Councillor Moifi Kane, and so to Councillor Baka Kane. Baka Kane is the brother to Moifi Kane as well. I know these people because our families have some interlinks, and they were our seniors, but we sort of grew up knowing one another. And so I can understand how siblings will invite other siblings, regardless of their status in society, to be at some ceremony like that, if it was the right ceremony. And with Minister Moda as well, for a long time, Councillor Kane, under the UNDP SES program, worked as the legal consultant at the Ministry of Commerce doing President Salif administration. And it is my understanding is that Mr. Moda had worked at Ministry of Commerce for a time when Olubanki Kalari King was the minister before she went to Foreign Affairs. So I'm just surmising here. I do not have this as a fact that they may have known each other or crossed paths there. So you see friends and relatives coming to support. But what is at issue here is really a larger picture, which is around the tenure question, the constitutionality, the matters that haven't been settled yet. Just today, Dennis, I forwarded you an op-ed, which I thought was one of the most analytical legal analysis yet on this tenure question, which was written by Professor Kwame Clement. It settled the matters for me. I mean, if you read that argument, which in different ways we've been raising on this show, when Councillor Jawe was here one night, I started asking, the Constitution, you cannot, when I talk about Constitution without constitutionalism, that's what I was talking about. The Constitution is not a matter of just interpreting an isolated text and then you rely upon that and leave the rest of the Constitution aside. You have to ask, as Mr. Clement argues, you have to interpret the Constitution holistically, and so I think until that matter is settled, because these institutions are tenure institutions, there are laws that created them. Until you can repeal or otherwise vacate the law, it is still the law. You cannot simply ignore and forget about them. So that is the bigger question I think we should be talking about, that's creating all of the confusion. And I'm glad you have an attorney here who understands the Liberian law, Tony Freeman, here to help us understand some of these questions. So I think it's that bigger question. On the political level, Mr. Freeman put it right too. You had a senator, the party chair, and then these two senators there who are from a different branch of government interfering in executive branch matters. So it just creates this kind of conundrum there for you, even if not conflict of interest at various levels. So there are all kinds of intricacies that really brought this matter to a point that Anthony is describing as disgraceful and so on.
And staying with that, because if we could look at this as a turnover, right, it should be like a program that both parties are aware that this is going to take place. But from the way it appears, it's like they were performing courier duties. We brought this letter from the president.
Right. And I have to say, you know, someone raised a question just in the social media post I read the other day and asked the question, these announcements, the president's appointments, as though when they're announced on social media, or that makes it official, right? That must they be announced on social media, or must the list be released on social media? Now, I get it. The executive mansion has an official website. It also has an official Facebook page. So yes, if there are policy matters or public affairs issues, you can announce and make the public aware through those media. That's fine. But you do not have to go to executive mansion website to authenticate whether an appointment that the president has made is legit. And I don't take that as the reliance, and Mr. Freeman can help us here. If indeed the president did appoint someone and there's a letter of appointment to that effect and the letter looks legitimate, aside from the tenure constitutional questions we've been grappling with different other positions, I think that it shouldn't be a question of, well, Mr. Van Bommels hasn't seen it on on the executive mansion website and so on. So I thought that was a low point. It was a weak argument in that particular respect. You didn't have to see on the executive mansion website or social media. If it was under the president's signature on the green appointment letter, it looks legit. It's legit. And before then, there should have been other types of communication, official channels of communication, because see, we have to respect our citizens who have availed themselves for public service. If we're all in it for the sake of public service itself, not only for ourselves or personal aggrandizing, ulterior purposes, you shouldn't treat someone like that. Someone who has served their country in a role, just have somebody else comes and removes them unceremoniously. You belittle them in front of their staff. If anything, you belittle them in front of the nation. You are sending a wrong message, President, that doesn't matter what you do, we can kick you out anytime. I think public service is sacrifice is something that people should be respected and honored if you want to transition to a different person to continue this particular type of service to the public.
Thank you. Let me welcome Mr. Minsfi Dupo, that's our global affairs analyst. And Mr. Dupo, if you can adjust your camera a little bit in the landscape view, I will turn it around sideways. Let's see. Yes, that's perfect. So while you adjust, let me go to Mr. Fremont. Mr. Fremont, those that are leaving the position, if you're being fired or if you're being replaced, should you also receive an official communication, or do you send people to your office and say, "Get a letter here"?
Yeah, I think it's quite unfortunate the way they did it. It seems very amateurish. I mean, at least a formal letter, letting them know that they have been relieved and they are appointing another person, and that kind of mutual communication to show that there's going to be a transition. But I think Walker is not doing well because he's, one, violating the Constitution, two, he's violating the state order. Because I want to believe the tenure thing has gone to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has placed a stay order. So while the stay order is in place, I mean, I'm shocked for Walker's extent of experience not to know that when there is a stay order, everybody should remain in their position. Secondly, I think the way he's going about this tenure thing is a clear violation of Article 18 of the Constitution. Article 18 talks about equal opportunity for employment, regardless of sex and creed, religions, and political backgrounds and stuff like that. So Walker promised reconciliation and unity, heading the Unity Party, but he's proceeding in a manner with the tenure thing that is going to cause complete disunity. These are Liberians. They may be CDC people, but they are Liberians. People don't just, after serving in their capacity, you don't just walk up to them and just come with a letter. That should have been prior communication, prior notice, discussion, and a joint setting of a date and time for the transition to occur. So, for now, I think he has to respect the state order. The Supreme Court has issued, assuming if the NASCORP were involved in that case, that will be a basis for filing a bill of information to the court that Mr. President is not adhering to the state order that has been placed. So that's my take on the initial.
Thank you. Again, let me welcome Mr. Mansfield Duopo, someone who has worked at NASCORP. Is it lucrative, Mr. Duopo? Tell a little bit about NASCORP and what is causing this issue.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm happy to be back. I want to thank, first of all, Mr. C, who and I talked earlier today, informing me of this show and wanting me to participate. Sorry, I came a little bit late. I just got home from work, the traffic and all that stuff. Almost get there, my wife asked me if I got the onions. So I had to make a quick rush, to the store, to grab her onions before she comes home herself, to start dinner. By the way, I'm happy to be back, and I think you guys were on the NASCORP thing. I was monitoring it while I was trying to fix my system here. The situation at NASCORP just reminded me of a hostile takeover. In the corporate world, there's something called a hostile takeover where, some corporation kind of just buy up, the equities, the liabilities, the assets of other corporations and just make it their own, based on, mergers and all acquisitions. I'm sure Wanda will know, what I'm talking about. He, somebody who understands finance and economics. But I saw it he used the right word, amateurish, You saw a senator, I think there were two senators, the minister, is that Commerce? Modale, Commerce Minister.
Yeah. That is correct.
The chairman of the party. It was just, 50 days ago, these very people were, besmirching the character of their predecessor. It just speaks to the zero-sum nature of our politics, where the whole winner takes it all mentality, where there's not a variable sum, where it's a win-win, everybody in it for the greater good of the country. But it's all about people in it for the takes, it was a sorrowful thing, to behold, government officials, senior government officials sitting there in a corporate boardroom. I've been in that boardroom several times, when I was head of the corporate policy and strategy department of that entity. I'm not going to speak on the internal workings. I'm not going to do that, for reasons, I'm sure all of us can understand, professional, standards. But it just reflected that distaste, in the 45 days that we've looked at the broadcast at presidency. We heard about a lot of, machinations, maneuverings, the different factions, trying to position themselves, people sending their brothers to entities without his consent, people sending their wives to entities without his consent. And I don't know who's in charge. We don't want, we would love a president, who is, what would I say, nice looking, got a nice, framework. But look, we want a president who is in charge. We want somebody who is in charge from day one, who shows that leadership, who's not seconding his office to his handlers. After the lady told them that she was going to call Dwayne Van Bambus, they started a jitter. You could see that childish, bravado. And the chairman of the ruling party is sitting there, somebody who himself has been involved in, kind of a chicanery, leading to the inauguration itself and clamoring for jobs to be managing director of the port. You see that people in there for the text, They're not in it for the good of the country. You know, they're just in there positioning themselves, their family members, their friends, and making sure that there's the very tenureship we're talking about, tenure, the law, tenureship law. I mean, and one of worked at the Governance Commission. He and I worked at the Governance Commission. When we were crafting these policies, some of the policies that we crafted on decentralization, security sector reform, or the legal, the sector in the legal, the reform in the legal sector, and all these things. Ellie did not take these things seriously. All she wanted was this tenureship, almost like an inheritance, you know, an insurance policy to make sure that her cronies were positioned in a way that in her post, presidency, they will be well taken care of. Now he has come home. You know, the chicken has come home to roost. You know, and they don't understand that these things are crafted in laws. You don't have, I mean, George at NASCORP and General asking me if it's lucrative. Well, my job was not based on if it was lucrative. I got my fair and legitimate compensation. I didn't go there to extract anything outside my legal compensation. You know, and you see that he's Murphy Connor. I'm so shocked. A lawyer of high repute, somebody who I've known since my university days for more than 30 years, somebody who I got the highest respect for, sat down there, you know, and he was made mockery of. You know, I mean, it's so shameful. So, I mean, it just reflects, like I said, the zero-sum nature of our politics.
What is shameful if the president gives you an appointment, say you are at NASCORP, I'm going over there to have a seamless transition, has Mr. Mudar.
Was it seamless? Was it seamless? Did we see the video? I mean, you showed the video. You could see that. Why will you have senators, ministers of government, chairman of party going to an entity to do what? To install Murphy Connor? Was that the intention? To scare those who are in charge right now, to scare them off? You know, this was a strong arm tactics.
From what I understood, these were siblings, Boto Kana and Murphy Kana. So if I'm going to take over as superintendent of Sando, definitely, you guys will come with me.
Well, that put that aside. You know, we're not trying to talk about, you know, relationship and we're talking about government entity. We're talking about our governance architecture. It's not based on familial relationship. Yeah, that's part of it. You know, people can come and watch the situation, but what is not done, the legal framework that we've established as an architecture, that needs to be protected before, you know, family relationship or relationship based on partisanship or whatever relationship you have. You know, so that's the point that we have to make sure we hammer home as people who believe in the rule of law, who believe in the administration of the public affairs.
Thank you.
You know, I hope you get that point.
I get it. Let me go to Mr. C.A., who earlier described it. Mr. C.A., the party chairman, and I was thinking in my head, I wonder what really went on. How was this decided? But Mr. Mudad, or his post, gave us some idea. He said this was supposed to be a seamless transition. So he was called for the sole purpose of supporting a simpler professional process. The party chairman tried to explain, say, hey, they say anytime you start explaining, it means you are losing, right? He said, hey, we are all professional people. Here's the senator. I am the party chairman. We wouldn't do anything that is not legit.
That looked like a mob, mob mentality, really. You know, let's see it go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. C.A.
Yeah, Dennis, I think our government consultant here, Mr. Saleh, disagree with my choice of words when I said this was shameful, and he disagreed with that. I mean, if that was not shameful, I don't know what else is shameful. You had a party chairman who have to walk away. And you had a senator, 2 senators, by the way, who have to walk away without accomplishing what they went there for. And you could tell that the chairman was trying to explain himself. Say, look, we got a letter from the president. I think Prince Moy also mentioned that. We got a letter from the president. if they had communicated with the authority there that this person has been appointed, let's make sure that there is an agreement as to when this person takes over. They won't have that situation. Now, the person
when you are fired, you are fired. What do we need to agree with you? I mean, you're
well,
gone.
then is if you are fired, right? But this is a process that I will believe happens. I don't think the other day I saw someone taking, I mean, today actually at the Ministry of Information, you have the former Minister of Information, Legend Rennie, right? He was there when Jeremiah Pierre was taking over today. They were there. They got the information. They were all on the same page that, okay, this person is taking over today. The person who has been there must show up. Well, they have their thing like officer in charge. I don't know the legality about that. I'm glad that Anthony is here. He can help us. But I think it speaks well for the institution and the better way of doing things when the person who has been in charge is there to turn over. Now, if the person does not want to be there, that's okay. But if both sides have the information that, look, this is what we're doing, as I mean, describe it, a simple professional process. If that were in place, if both sides have an agreement as to what will be happening that day, or today, I don't think they will have to, the party chairman will have to be explaining, Prince Moore will have to be explaining, and they have to walk away in that manner. They were made shame. It was a shameful process. I don't know a better way to describe it, so I put it to our governor consultant here. Mr. Selby, don't you think that was embarrassing for the individuals?
No, Anthony, I think you're mischaracterizing my end of my comment. I said it has reduced itself to what Anthony is describing as. So I was talking about the larger picture of things, what needs to be addressed, and that's what Mr. Duopo and Attorney Freeman have both alluded to here. There is a constitutional issue that ought to be resolved. I've been singing this for how many weeks now, since we had Jawa here and others, right? Until you do that, and the attorney Freeman has just informed us the matter has gone to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has issued a stay order. That means no one should touch that particular question until the matter is resolved. And so I was just describing the circumstances that has reduced it to an extent that people would describe it as disgraceful. And so, yeah, I mean, if that happened to me, it would be disgraceful. I'm not disagreeing with you there.
So Mr. Salif here, let me ask you this, right? We don't have certain mayors yet in most part of Liberia. We don't have the superintendent yet. What is this rush, if I will term it that way, to appoint people to tenure position and board members that basically, I mean, I've never worked at NASCORP, but it's like if we don't have NASCORP people today, what's going to happen? So where is President Bwaka in all this?
Well, you have to, I understand though, Dennis. Again, I'm not a Unity Party person, so I don't speak for the government. The other day I told you no one has called me, so I'm not an apologist in a position to speak for people. But when these kinds of transitions are happening, there's a presidential election. A president came to office through all kinds. They had to jump over hoops to really get to where they got to. All kinds of political marriages happened. You can bet that they're going through everything they can to accommodate people, to fulfill promises, political promises. Unfortunately, at the expense of the state, at the expense of the citizens, by and large, and that's what we're seeing here. So, when you ask the question, what's the urgency? Some of these tenure positions, state agencies, there is reason why tenure law exists that helps you to create those kinds of, go to the legislature and say make sure that the Auditor General is a tenured officer so that they have the freedom and independence and neutrality to do their job. So they're not just willy-nilly picking any institution to be tenured. There's reason for that. And so if there's no one in charge, technically, you have a problem on your hands. You don't want that. In this case, however, of course, the people in charge, people are still working. They still have the tenure years left in the tenure. So they're saying, why come after me when the law protects me? There's a reason why the law protects me. You're coming after me. So there's confusion there. But in terms of, I say, if there was no one in that office, of course, it's urgency to place people there, because the NASCOR is where you settle pensions and retirement matters, and it's just like your social security. Here, you're collecting taxes from people so that you help. It's a social safety net for the country. So it's a very important institution.
And so, do you really believe that President Bouakai sent them there, or is he aware of what's going on there? I mean,
I wouldn't know, but they had a letter. If they didn't have a legitimate letter from the president, that is even a bigger problem. And it's all kinds of levels: at political level, at legal level, at moral and ethical levels. That is a bigger problem. You have, even though Senator Boto Kane is a sibling to Councillor Moefi Kane, she's still a government official, the first branch of government. That's where she sits.
And she was introduced as a senator. Prince Moy went there in his capacity as senator.
Okay, so then let's take care of the Senate at that level. Then, in that case, then all of them have major problems. If they went to that, you're usurping the president's authority. You are representing yourself as something which you are not, or which didn't happen. All kinds of issues will emerge if that were to not be, what they said was not truly the president who have sent them there with a legitimate letter of appointment. That would be problematic. But it's difficult for any of us to know, other than just taking their words for it. When they say we are eminent citizens, can you see I am the party chair? This is senator from Bon County. This is senator from where? Bapulu. You got to look for my county. Where? Bapulu. And this is the Minister of Commerce. What are you talking about? We are eminent citizens. If you're looking for any eminency, so I take the eminent citizens at our words.
Mr. Freeman, here we're talking tenure, and people are becoming, and we will know whether President Bouakai sent them or not if we can hear from him, or perhaps the press secretary tomorrow, and see really what happened. But Attorney Freeman, we're talking tenure. You told us about the state order. I mean, would the president's advisor, we have justice minister now in place, we have legal advisors, and even the people that went there are lawyers. Would they not know?
I think the way they do government job business in Liberia, I mean, it's really out of order. Matthew mentioned hostile takeover in the business world. Sometimes those things happen. The shareholders, they don't want you to come, and you say, okay, well, whether you like it or not, I'm going to come. I'm going to go up and buy up from as many persons as who want to sell their shares. And before you look, I have majority shares, and then I just take over the company. But in a political setting, there is a little bit of civility. These people are Liberian citizens. They have served the government for a couple of times. They deserve courtesy. Secondly, legally speaking, there should be notice, adequate notice. And for Bouakai, 50 years of experience, I mean, come on, man. Adequate notice is important. That smooth transition should be happening. This is not a business world where you go, you find enough shareholders, you buy their shares, and you take one, and you call the person who was previously having the majority say, well, this company is mine now, I have 51%. That's not it. So there should have been a bit of civility, I believe, or the desire courtesy, adequate notice, and these people should have done it. And to be very, blunt, the fact that there were two councillors at law there, and they just went in that kind of hostile takeover manner. It's just embarrassing. That's the most I can say. But I tell you what, Bouakai is compounding his disdain for the law. If I have to go back, maybe I'll have to go back to Chancellor D, where the Supreme Court issue a state order.
That is very strong.
Actually, Freeman, that is so strong. But this is my question I have. And any of you,
disdain for the law?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to say? Because
my
the
question
Supreme Court
is,
issue a stay order, right? The Supreme Court issue a stay order. And while that stay order is pending, he gives people a letter to go and take over NASCORP. I mean, you tell me what adjective to use. Well, maybe I don't know.
Dennis, I have a question for the panelists here. And gentlemen, any of you can go first. I'm curious, what has motivated these eminent citizens, as the party chairman, described them, to be there, that they must be there at all costs for this person to take over? What really motivating them? I'm just curious, why must a party chairman be there? Will he be at any other takeover within this government? Is that something he's able to do? I mean, what motivated him? Senator Boto Kane, maybe that's a family lane, so I get it. Prince Moy, right? Would it be at any other takeover, especially for the party chairman? What motivated them to be there at this particular place?
Anthony, I've seen in videos the party chair at LPLC, I believe, when Amos Toer was taking over. Okay. I've seen him at several other of the party stalwarts who are, being commissioned or taking over their offices. It's not just Liberia. That's not unusual for moral support. You see people going for confirmation hearings. Their families come. Here in the U.S., we always use the United States as an example. We see that all the time. Somebody's been sworn in. The family member holds the holy scripture that they believe in, and they swear in, and they name a line of relatives and spouses and cousins, and that happens in any society. There's nothing. I didn't see that as problematic necessarily. What you've pointed out, which I agree with, is I think it was Mr. Freeman who did. It's okay. So if you are legislators, you are senators, you're coming in an executive contest like that. Any prudent senator or legislator would think twice and say, okay, there's laws that say separation of power and there are implications for anything that could go wrong here. I think the larger question we've all been talking about is what's creating all of these confusion and machinations and such. Other than that, Duopo's taking the office. We're good friends. I'll come to morally support him. I'll be there. If you invited me, I'll be there. Same thing goes for any friend or relative. I don't, regardless of your status.
So when Dennis is superintendent and taking over Sino County, you'll be there?
I'll come to Sino County to support Dennis, to help him situate. I will come. Unless he didn't invite me, but if he did, I'll be there.
No,
he hasn't gotten a call yet.
Yeah. Mr. Duopo, let me also add to Anthony's question there, because we saw also, I think the Justice Minister and the Information Minister, they were at the home of the victim, the person who was killed on a large power theft crime. They went there, on behalf of the president. The chief law enforcement officer went to apologize. Right now, we see the party chair and the rest of the people carrying a letter to say, hey, you are no longer here, we're bringing in new group. Is President Bouaka really sending these people to do these things?
I mean, it's just sad, because I don't know if Murphy County himself, really bought into that whole, sinister attempt to take over in that manner. As a lawyer, he should have known better. I expect him to know better. And he's a smart guy, So, the fact that all these people could just converge, on NASCORP, and try to impose Murphy on the corporation. And the director general, I don't know if he has returned, because he was, somewhere, seeking medical attention. I heard. He was in the States, seeking medical attention. And what baffled me was when they later try to put him on the phone, try to put them on speakerphone. They all kind of jitter, and they're almost like kids, who are caught in the act. And, it just confuses you. Like when I was a kid, I used to, most of the time when my mom had my little sister, I was the guy who would go in a room to get a milk. You guys know about the Cerelac milk. I would go there and would pass her some, and my mom watched me one day from the window, you know. So when she called me, and I didn't know she was watching me. I was just kind of confused in the room. What are you doing in the room? I trying to get some butter. Oh my said, I hearing you. It looks like something in your mouth. I said, no, mama, nothing in my mouth. I'm sure you guys can all relate to similar situation like that with growing up. Trying to be mischievous.
There was no milk, so I can't relate.
Maybe they were pumping that or something that but on the larger, more serious aspect, it just reflects on, like I said initially, there's a mentality where it's a zero-sum nature of our politics. Is this winner takes all mentality where you vanquish the loser and you kind of want to wipe out that slate, and have a clean slate. But in the process, Dewey Van Bambo has been at NASCORP, I'm sure, since 2006. He kind of epitomizes the corporation. Over time when somebody is in a position of power like that, and where it looks so dripping with everything that comes with money and affluence. People won't target that. People target those institutions. Institutions like NASCORP, NPA, FPRC. That's where the party, the foot soldiers are where the target first. But it just reflects, that poor sense of our politics right now. It's so debasing, and we got to do better. And even at the Governance Commission, I heard Mr. Bwaka appointed somebody, Larry Topa, at the Governance Commission, and the state order Wanda alluded to. It was based on the Governance Commission case. This yellow guy went to the Supreme Court, and he said, he has tenure. I don't know who's coming with the next tenure. I don't know if Calasco or Finda are going to come with their own tenure people, to say, look, we got tenure, I'm the, tenure special assistant to the president.
What we are saying from the party chairman, because he's not a government official. We didn't even see it from
Well, de facto government official. In our body politic, party chairman, especially a ruling party, you kind of immerse yourself, you fraternize with the political elite, because if he feels that, like other party chairman in the past, when you birth a government, you feel, entitled, first of all, he wanted to go to the NPA, all Hulu Balo follow him, and they gave him the chairmanship, I think, at the NPA, the board. And so party chairman, why is sure not government official, in a de jure sense, but in a de facto sense, they feel, and people use them as props, or the party chairman will be, so it gives that sense of legitimacy, when the party chairman is there, he had an aura of, and he feels that he wants to legitimize, the process. So if you watch the video, he was the one person who was talking about their eminence, we are eminent people, we come here to come allow the president and all that stuff. If that's found to be false, heads roll. The minister of those who are fireable should be fired. And I know the senators, they can be fired, but it's disgraceful, really. It's disgraceful.
Let's conclude on this, and let me go around the room before we go to our next topic. Is where do we go from here? Mr. Anthony Freeman talked about the state order. We still have there are other 10 people operating. My own friend, Dr. Yure Yakbawulo, is at EPA, is operating. Other people are going. Other people are at the Supreme Court. What do we hope to see? Are we going to hear from President Bwaka as to how things should go? Where do we go from here, Anthony Freeman?
At this point, Bwaka needs to stop because there's a state order. That's how you show you regard the rule of law. When you go to court, the court issue a state order, you stop. You don't continue with the actions. That can be a basis for somebody filing information to the court that you are violating the court directives. So I am of the strong conviction that this is not a case that Bwaka will prevail because there have been several cases. I mentioned the Asset Jackson case. You know, I mentioned the Selena Palsy Mappy. She went to court also to declare parts of the code of conduct to be unconstitutional. And the court reminded her that there is a compelling state interest. I don't know, let me just read that particular line. In our opinion, the government of Liberia has a legitimate, compelling, significant, and important state interest to protect the resources of a Liberian state from abuse by public officials. Setting create a level playing field. So when the state has an apparent, and I say apparent because the court will decide the finality, but when the legislature passes a law, there is a presumption that is legal. And that presumption will hold until you go to the court and the court say, okay, it's illegal. But until the court can say it's illegal, there is a presumption that is legal. That is why you are under obligation to abide by the law until it can be declared illegal. So, I mean, if Bwaka is going to encourage other people to abide by the law, he got to start the process. So when the Supreme Court issue a stay order, he has to stop. He can continue to be like giving people letters, sending people to places when there is a stay order. You know, so I feel that we have an opportunity. I have no doubts because from the Martin case to the Martin Colley case to the Selena Paulson case to the Axel Jackson case, in every instance, the court has affirmed the constitutionality of the legislature to pass these laws. So definitely it's going to be a confirmation, but they have to stop what they're doing and wait for the court to make a decision.
Thank you. Mr. C.A., what's next? What do we expect to see coming out of this whole thing? People are saying, you know, sometimes when it happens, we say, cut the president some slack. The government is still forming. Do you have any more slack left?
No, I don't call politicians slack. It's a dangerous thing to do, to call any politician slack. Even on day one, you don't call them slack. The reason is just simple. When you are elected president, you have pretty close to over maybe 30 plus days to start work. Is that not enough time? In the case of President Bwaka, he got elected sometime in November. From November all the way to January, you're talking about over 2 months yet. So why should I call the man slack? He's had enough time. The time he took to come to America and be chilling, you know, and dancing with somebody that's Stanton, who is a criminal according to U.S. law. I mean, he should have used that time to form his government. I have information that the president was informed from the very day president we are considered graciously, let's start putting the team together. And he told them, look, you know, you will have to wait. And he waited it out. And when he got inaugurated, that very day, those people he told felt that he had names to announce on day one. That never happened. Day two, it never happened. So on day three, all the handler rushed to him and said, no, Pop, you can't do this. We have to get some names out here. This is what happened. So I don't call politicians slack, but, you know, the Anthony, answer your question. What needs to be done? President Bwaka needs to start. The Supreme Court has issued a stay order. That stay order means do not appoint any other person to any tenure position. Neither should any of those persons you appointed in the first place should take over. Why is he allowing this to happen? If this is not to his knowledge, then he should take action against people who are acting in his name and bringing his name to public disrepute. He needs to act. But again, President Bwaka is that person who will not act and will not act until maybe there's no time to act. And it's sad. He needs to start. That's all he can do. The court must be respected when it decides a matter.
Thank you. Mr. Duopo, President, we have tried the same thing, right, to replace tenure officials. Now President Bwaka is doing the same thing. Is this a president issue? When they get there, they get little.
Yeah. I mean, it also, you know, speaks to the imperial presidency that we have in our country. You know, that president is almost kind of deified, president, Lord and gospel. You know, he's not really, you know, held in check because, you know, how our country is. You know, everybody kind of succumb to the president's wishes and
You
whatever
think
he.
it's everybody or just bunch of sycophants?
Well, I mean,
I don't
it's
believe
not
it.
just a bunch of sycophants. It's our country's political socialization. We have this, kind of centralized, bureaucratic political system where, everything is centralized to the extent where people on the periphery, they got to feed into that central, almost like a circuit board, all the wirings and things kind of feed into that circuit board, for power, I mean, so that our political socialization has been since the founding of the nation state. I mean, presidents have come, all the presidents from, Roberts to the current, and it's a societal reflection of what we want to see in our president. We want to see our president as the one single person that kind of embodies, the power and authority of the state. And,
Tubman did that thing, man. Not all of them.
yeah. Well, Tubman, it was on the extreme, because of the longevity of the state. But even on day one, if you kind of manifest that, it also kind of, I mean, comparativists can even see, you can make that kind of, juxtaposition. But, Bwaka's, you talk about, one more talk about, being disdainful of the court. And you guys were saying, oh, it's too hard. Even one, I mean, one action of the court, and if you violate that or you go contrary to that, order of the court, that's disdainful. It's in the law. I mean, you show contempt, to the court. Maybe that's the word. Maybe you guys want not to use contempt to the court, because the court, I mean, it's a separate branch of government that where matters arising are adjudicated for final understanding based on laws and facts. The governance commission could have been doing some work on that, but they are kind of stymied by even this court action. Because the governance commission, I work at the governance commission too. I'm sure Wanda worked there too. Wanda, you did, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Wanda at the governance commission too. Like everywhere I went, Wanda. Yeah, so the governance commission should be doing the appraisal of the government performance. Get a dashboard where you almost like you are separate entity, but why should you're a government entity, but you detach yourself because you are an integrity institution. And you're doing that watchdog work that the government needs to see itself in a mirror and say, look, these are some of the things that we need to work on. I know it's just 45 days plus, and we can cut them some slacks. We hope that, with the experience and all that he brings to the job, we hope that, they can work on some things. And a couple of days ago, I heard that his, I think, legal advisor, Buji Ben Keita, was involved in another court matter between Prophet Keys and Judy Andy, kind of usurping the role of the court, trying to kind of, insert himself in the matter. These are things that, don't work well in the governance, architecture. It just undermines all the pillars that have been built over the years, since maybe since 2005.
Thank you, Mr. Salif. I want you to conclude on this court on this tenure issue, and what does it tell us about this whole tenure? Maybe we don't need it because it appears that most of our presidents want to abuse it, and even people are in the tenure position, they are not thinking tenurely. Some of them.
No, we do need tenured positions. The Constitution, Article 89, I think it is, made provision for a name specific government institutions because of the integrity status, and give the legislature authority to even enact laws to create tenure. So this is part of our constitutional framework, and for good reasons. Writ large, as everyone has said, the government has a conundrum on its hands. No matter how you put it, they have to address this matter. If for nothing, for the constitutionality, we have to be a democracy, a constitutional democracy that we are, which means the Constitution checks our powers and ensures that the balance of power is really equally distributed among the three branches of government. In that, if you you were to trample upon any and be seen to not be respectful of the law, not going as I say rule of law, then you are even creating a perception problem for yourself that you are a lawless administration. You don't want that kind of perception to be created, even if it's just for the sake of perception. If it is real, then you're actually violating the tenets of constitutional democracy, which we say we are. As Mr. Clement argued in his article, I encourage you to read. He said, we're not just a democracy, we are a constitutional democracy. And constitutionality comes with responsibility. It has framework. You can, interpret it. They have formula by which you use to interpret provisions of the law, particularly the Constitution. So the larger point I want to leave with is that what are the government side believes they're right, that there are certain current tenure positions President Salif created, the legislature enacted law to create those tenure positions. The previous president signed, right? So there are laws. You have to go back to the legislature, do something about it. If not, you can't just pretend they don't exist and act otherwise, right? If you do that, then the opponents of the government will be right to argue that this is a lawless government, or they don't have respect for rule of law, and even if the contrary is true. So they got to do something about it. And since the Constitution has issued a stay order, I think they should respect that and do other appointments and form the government in other aspects, and then come back and revisit this issue, or see how the court resolves the matter for them. If it satisfies them, they can proceed accordingly.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Between the Headlines on Focus on Liberia. We will go to our next issue, but the whole idea of tenure, and we see that people are divided. People who supported the whole idea of tenure, they no longer support that because it's their person who's doing it, but we still want to encourage all our listeners to let's stick with the law. As it stands, you can't convince monkey that honey is sweeter than banana, but let's do our best. Next, we see this whole idea of war crimes court. And this is a very touchy subject for all of us, especially those of us who lost people in the war. My father was killed. I always said that. It was 20 years later before I asked my sister, how did daddy die? Because I didn't want to hear that an old man in his 70s will be, attacked and killed. So it's very personal to me. But here again, the issue of war crimes court has come back. President Bouakai, during his inaugural, mentioned it. We were expecting a little bit more on the State of the Union. It didn't happen. But of late, we saw a video surfacing that said this is Alan White in Monrovia, talking to President Bouakai about war crimes court. We don't know what happened, whether that is true, that is false. Up to today, we don't know.
I just, we've been on this journey together for a long, long time. And I wanted to thank you for the phone call. And I just wanted to ask you again, why did you want me to come over here? Well, you've
been a good friend of Liberia. And I don't see it just as a duty. I see it as a concern for a country that you have interest in, and you pursue that. And we believe your concerns are genuine. And so we've opened the door for us to work together.
All right. We saw that video still can be authenticated. Today, the House, they signed a resolution. And let's take a listen what went on in the House today.
We want justice! 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 We want justice!
According to the report, 40 representatives signed a resolution for the establishment of War Economic Crimes Court. Today also, the face, when it comes to atrocity, who had made himself a face of the violence in the country, the one who was caught on camera butchering the president, the sitting president at that time, Prince Johnson said, hey, because every time they go call war crimes court, he is always jittering. So he had an interview on a local radio station where he said, well, Alan White and these people, they are trying to cause confusion. And all these things have been happening for war crimes court. Mr. C, let me start with you here. War crimes court is back in discussion, and the Senate, in fact, the speaker and the deputy speaker were among the two that signed that resolution for the establishment of war crimes court. Mr. C, is it getting serious here? And is this also a credit to President Bouaka? Because it appears to me that he's carrying a big stick. He's not talking much, but we cannot ignore the fact that the momentum that war crimes court has received, President Bouaka is responsible for that.
Dennis, I am tempted to give Mr. Bouaka some credit here, but I will wait until things get to a place where I can be very sure that President Bouaka is on this. You played a video there, even though Focus on Liberia is yet to independently confirm that this is a legitimate video. From the look of the video, it's like Alan White was somewhere and Bouaka was somewhere and having a phone conversation. But again, the conversation, looks so much legitimate. And so to have had a conversation with Alan White on this issue, and the fact that the executive mansion is yet to deny any such conversation to have happened between the two gentlemen is something to say, well, this actually might have happened. Now, the reason I'm just tempted and I want to give President Bouaka credit is that this thing is not on the executive mansion website. There are a lot of things the administration, started that I see on the executive mansion website. The HPX something is on the website. Even when some group of people gave President Weah fire service equipment, it was President Bouaka. Yeah, when there was this group that went to Liberia, they had something to donate to fight fire in Liberia. They went to the president's house, they gave it to the president. And the next thing I know, it was on the executive mansion website. Something that should be at the fire service was on the president, even appointments on the president website. I'm trying to say that there are some important things the administration has started that on the executive mansion website because of the significance of it. I don't know what is more significant than the war crime court. And this information is not on the executive mansion website. Maybe they just miss it. Maybe they don't see the importance that I see that maybe ought to see. So I wait to see that. But on a serious note, this is something that we need. I am an advocate for the Work and Economic Crimes Code. One of the reasons why I supported the CDC at the very beginning when I didn't know anything about politics, it was just that single issue. Comrade Dropo is here, War and Economic Crimes Code. Then we all can tell our stories about what happened during the war. This is so personal to me, all right? And so if President Bouaka can follow through on this and deliver the War Crime Code, I will give him so much credit for that. I need it. Liberians need it. This war devastated our country beyond belief. There's so many things we can attribute to our country's failure in this way because of the war. And to not have come to closure to this issue after several years, I don't know what is more important to us as a people than holding individuals accountable who committed mayhems, some of them who were engaging in something called solari, eating human parts. We saw this. So as a group of civilized people, to sit by and allow these individuals to be our leaders and some of our citizens to be electing them, these people should be deciding for us who should be our leaders and where our country goes, is personal to me. And so if President Bouaka can deliver on this, I will not hesitate to give him credit because this is so personal to me. But I will conclude to say this. The resolution is at the House now. It's being reported 40 senators committed themselves today, including the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker. And in fact, the Speaker met the ambassador at large from the United States. All right. And he committed the entire legislature to this process, that they will follow through and that they will look at it carefully. They will not be insensitive but use the word. They will not rush. I don't know what that word means. I will look it up. But something tells me the speaker is trying to be political, as he will do, any politician for that matter. So is this something for me to be excited about? I want to be excited, but I don't want to be excited because Dennis, we have come close to this place before. Josh, we have former president, he was at the United Nations and he floated the idea that there will be, the establishment of World Crime Court. When he came to Monrovia, he changed his tone. All right, President Bouaka at some point talked about this, and the next thing we know, Prince Johnson spoke, and then he make a detour on the issue. But again, he's coming back to this. I want to believe now. I hope he will give his support and blessing to the resolution so that we can get this thing done. If there's nothing Liberia should not achieve, it should not be the War and Economic Crime School. Sierra Leone did it. They got something out of it. And I think no one will attempt to carry war in Sierra Leone again, because those leaders who perpetrated the senseless war in that place were held accountable. I want to see that in Liberia. Charles Taylor should not be the only one because of his role in violence, not in Liberia though, but to be held accountable to the way any individuals who are engaged in this kind of violence should be held accountable. Children, their lives, their futures completely destroyed because of the war, and I won't sit here without talking about it. I submit.
Mr. Duopo, is President Bouaka leading from behind on this one?
Well, one of the features of life is to like I say, is to embrace ambiguity. Because individuals who are more tolerant of ambiguity are less likely to be rigid, in clinging to their beliefs, and more willing to consider alternative perspectives.
Baku?
The issue of war crimes court has been very pervasive in our body politic for almost 25 years now. I'm sure, since the war itself, that these ideas have been floated here and there, since the cessation of hostilities in Liberia, maybe, before Taylor came and after Taylor left, and other incidents that happened in the country. Bouaka is in a bind, like I see it, because we just saw the video here in Alan White, and he was telling Alan White, it is what you want, Alan, it is what you want, So,
according to the press secretary, what I read is they say it's fake, but
they say it's fake.
Yeah.
Yeah, but from the audio. Maybe the video might be fake, but the audio, Bouaka is expressing, his approval for the establishment of the court. But in the same vein, that I talk about ambiguity, and my good friend Salim and I always talk about duality and stuff like that. And I always bring the kind of philosophical constructs to my debate, because as a student of politics and philosophy, I always use philosophy to kind of guide my politics. Because ambiguity, it allows one to be, not clinging to that belief system, not being dogmatic, but being open to other alternative perspective. That's what Bouaka is playing that game. The person who you refer to as
that's a typical politician, right? Ambiguity. Don't be clear. Just be
yes.
So that we don't know where you stand on issue. That's
definitely, that's a nature of politics. To be ambiguous is the nature of politics, and a lot of leaders use that, like somebody would say, let's leave that one. Let's come to this issue.
All right.
So one of Bouaka's biggest, who made Bouaka president today? Wasn't it Prince Johnson?
No, it's not Prince Johnson. That means you are.
No, I know it might sound simplistic.
Yeah, very simplistic.
Per se. Yeah, but the truth is, Bouaka became president because of Prince Johnson's support in Lima. Nobody can dispute that fact. It's a fact. Bwaka got more votes in Nimba than his own home county of Lofa County. Prince Johnson is this enigma. There are people who hate him, who love him, which of course is legitimate, and there are other segments of the society that see him as a savior, whatever you might call it. This war crime code thing is very.
How do you see him?
How do I see him? It's not germane for the discussion. I'm coming to the discussion as a theoretician.
Okay.
And not about how I see him per se, but I'm just looking from that generic standpoint. So it's a balancing act. The black he's dancing on. It's almost like tap dancing while he's doing that. He's being ambiguous, talking about Alan. This is what you want. This is what does Bwaka really want in this whole war crime code thing? Bwaka was vice president to Ellen Johnson for 12 years. This was on the back burner. Ellen Johnson had the wherewithal in terms of the economics, the financial wherewithal, the military structure with UNMIL or whatever international force was in Liberia at the time that could have effectuated this whole idea of establishing a court, and that didn't materialize. We are Iraqi. It didn't materialize. We just all hope that this thing will be looked at within the context of our national unity, that cohesiveness, because this will be one thing that will really divide our people. We got to be very careful. Those who are proponents of the war crime code should also understand that there are others in the community, in the society, who are totally against it. So for a government to say they want it, they gotta make sure that the infrastructures are there, the political will is there, the legitimacy is there, the international backing is there, because this thing will go even international. It's not just the internal players, but those who aided and abetted the war, those who financed it from the initial stages, international actors, multinational corporations, non-state actors. These are things that we have to really wrap our heads around. Because to just establish a court and drag people to a court and, just be like a fiat, that would not fly. So we got to be very careful in how we go about this thing.
Thank you.
We had a TRC. It was internationally backed. Everybody came. I know there has to be some kind of resolution, but we got to be very careful. That's why this whole notion of ambiguity, and Bwaka explained that. We got to be careful, and we got to make sure that he really articulates his vision about how this thing will progress, and everything that has to do with its legitimacy. It has to be really articulated, and the legal framework got to be there that will meet international standard. Somebody talk about Taylor and Sierra Leone stuff. Yeah, there was international legitimacy, and Taylor was taken to Sierra Leone as what? Somebody who participated in the war there. I don't know how it was proven, but there's still lingering doubt after making that connection. So we got to make sure we understand this thing and how we move forward. That's my own take on the whole issue.
Thank you. Taylor is in jail for that, so there is nothing is lingering again. He's serving his time. So let's take it at that level. Mr. Anthony Freeman, Mr. President Bwaka and War Crimes Court, how you see this whole idea of a War Crimes Court coming to Liberia now? And from the resolution, nothing is binding here. They're just saying, hey, this is a good thing for us to do. Mr. Group will talk about the legal
tendency in Liberia for us not to follow people track record. What is Bwaka track record in terms of public utterances, in terms of support for war crime? Do we have it? I don't recall Bwaka being blunt straightforward on that before.
Secondly, during the 2017 debate, he said something to that effect, and I think he has supported war crimes court.
It doesn't look like it because his affiliation with Prince Johnson.
Lucas and Labra have that video when
his affiliation with Prince Johnson, if he must have said it, sort of like unsettled that argument. I also think that he has not owned up to the publication, so we don't know whether he's did it or not his view. But yes, what I think.
Anthony Freeman, I know you have the floor, but let me say this and then you continue.
Yeah, go ahead, interject.
During the 2017 presidential debate, we have the video here. President Bouaka said that he was for the War and Economic Crimes Court. And recently, in one of his speeches after becoming president or being elected president, he mentioned the War Crime Court. And now we have a video of him talking to Alan Ward. So these are three, instances when he mentioned War Crime Court. So we should take the man for his words. What he would do is another thing, but he said those things.
In the former speech, I remember he said he was going to explode. That's what I remember. Explode. Explode. So explode is the same thing Mesfi is saying. It's like a political talk, because you are making an inauguration speech. You say, I'm setting up a committee. That's different. But if you say I'm going to explode, then that's more political. And yes, the problem I have with that, if you watch the video, it looks like it's more driven by politics than by a quest for justice. I mean, you see people, we want justice. We want justice. These are people who are in power for 6 years that they didn't do it. And now a lot of them are vengeful for the fact that Prince Johnson switched sides and they lost. So that is a way politically of getting back at Prince Johnson. I have a doubt when you want to pursue the course of justice, but you are taking a political route to pursue the course of justice. And it doesn't work well eventually when you do that. Let me give you an example from...
Is that different from the political will people talk about?
I think it doesn't show a genuine political will in a sense, because they lost the election because Prince Johnson switched sides. So it looks to me like that is the way of punishing him. But it doesn't seem like a genuine quest for justice. And they did it in the case of the LACC Act. We are in the financial crime sector. We knew that the LACC needed some reform. But because it was driven by politics, so they bungled the whole act and they turned LACC into what I call a parliament. So now you got 7 persons there taking executive pay. You got no support for investigation, no logistics for investigation, but LACC is there. So it's there in name, but the effectiveness has been watered down. So I feel that there are two separate issues that Liberian generally bungled: war crimes and economic crimes. I do not believe that those two necessarily belong in the same sentence because they are different issues. For example, in the Weir government, our passport was sold to the highest bidder. Do you need a special legislature? You already got laws to pursue the people who sold our passports. Why wait for special court? We got criminal code C that has jurisdiction over economic and financial crimes. But Liberia is a country we go by slogan. When something is popular, it got a slogan. We just follow it. There are separate issues. The U.S. put sanctions on people like McGill and Bill Twelway, and they said they were massively corrupt at NPA. You don't need no court-specific regulation. You just need to investigate, and those who violate the laws, you prosecute them. Why wait for a specialized court? So war crimes, I will separate it from economic crime. And Bouaka, by his actions, have not shown that he is committed to it. Or as I know, that even before he went to Prince Johnson, he was dining with the Ure. Now, Ure sees himself as a businessman, but most Liberians see him as somebody who, shortchanged the state, and that's how he got his riches. And for almost 6 years, Bouaka was dining with Ure. Didn't he know Ure record? So by his action, he has not demonstrated that commitment. So I will have to see it in reality before I believe it. And also watch out for the Senate, because the Senate has a lot of people who are on sanctions. So these are people who will be hesitant to accommodate international actions, and stuff like that. I mean, what would someone like McGill and Bakuba Jr. do? Because they're not far from those kinds of things, accountability. So Walker has to do a lot more. He has not even made a public statement, so we don't even know his position. We just got a tip and stuff like that. But his action, if you go by his action, the long period of interaction with the jurists, his long period of interaction with pre-YJ to win the election, I have serious suspicion about his commitment. And so I will have to see more concrete steps by him before I believe that he's committed to this.
Mr. Salif, do you think Mr. Anthony Freeman has a point here that there are some low-hanging fruits that the government could pick? Why go all the way to war crimes court? You could do basic things, right? Like even the audit and asset recovery, and go after the people that were sanctioned, and all these little low-hanging fruits.
No, in that particular regard, the learned attorney is conflicting separate things as one, with all due respect. Look, the TLC report didn't call for war and economic crimes as such. It says extraordinary criminal tribunals, and then they mention areas of investigation based on the commission's findings. So Mr. Freeman has a point when it comes to the legislature, the political nature, and people who may be jubilating today, senators and so on. When you include economic crimes with this extraordinary criminal tribunal that the Truth Commission called for, you will be implicating all kinds of people who may even be supporting the process today. because you're talking about corruption crimes. You're talking about people who are, plundering the state, people who have gotten ill-gotten wealth and investigating the sources of those. Currently, now in the past, during the temporal tenure of the TRC's investigation, that's not what the economic crimes aspect will pertain to. So there are people who are digging their own graves without knowing so. They need some legal advice, some political advice to understand really the full of the context. However, I would differ with Mr. Freeman and Mr. Duopo when it comes to this war and economic crimes. Look, at least these individuals, seemingly from the look of things, will get due process. Our relatives and friends and our fellow citizens that were murdered, that people killed, some on television, some painfully, some of our family members don't have graves today. The victims of the Liberian conflict have not received any form of justice. Senator Johnson confuses one issue always and tries to, by repeatedly make it to be true, which is not true. The Accra Comprehensive Agreement, the CPA, they now grant amnesty to individuals who participated in the war as such, to say, okay, so we will do Truth Commission and there will not ever be some kind of judicial process. That's not what the CPA called for. The CPA called for the establishment of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, that the legislature at the time enacted legislation to enable that commission to sit. And they gave a temporal mandate, went from 1979 October to 2003. They gave certain specific time period and talked about some of the potential areas that the commission could look at. And based on what the commission found, the commission then could make recommendation for the way forward, including some kind of judicial process, which the commission determined an extraordinary criminal tribunal was the way to go. But the commission included economic crimes as well, because of some of the root causes of the conflict that the TRC investigated. Now, our state, the Liberian state, has in the past and still remains to be so, used basically as a welfare state, as a cash cow, where people went and when they have power and just took it for themselves, not for the rest of the country. But going on the criminal side of things, what else do we want? What are we really talking about here tonight? I mean, the kinds of egregious crimes, horrendous human rights violations that have visited upon our fellow citizens in our country, that destroyed the country, decimated our country, that we're still reeling from that today. The negative impacts of which will continue for several more decades if we don't have the right leaders and mindset in place. Look at our country today. You sit around and see fire blazing on people's houses because they can't even have a fitting proper electricity. There are people who I can't even begin to lecture you on because you know this or more than I do, right? So people need justice. We have now really gone through that national shock therapy to understand and appreciate the kind of crimes that were committed in Liberia. And to think that some of the perpetrators who are alive today, who are still alive, are actually the ones who are in power, who are deciding our fate. The country they helped to destroy with their own hands, now they are the ones in authority telling us how we should run such a country. And we're comfortable to entertain the notion that we're playing with fire if we try to exercise some justice, or if we try to bring some process that will stamp out impunity once and for all. Because it's a question of impunity, it just continues to perpetrate this thing in Liberia. We're just talking about tenure position thing, right? And any president can come and change the law and do whatever they want. That's lawlessness. Then that's not a constitutional democracy. So it is similarly here, if we're saying people who participated, financed or recruited, conscripted young people, abused them, drugged them, destroyed the country, killed people, that such people should just go scot-free, live with impunity. Let's sweep it under the carpet.
Yeah, but can I chip in?
Mr. Salif?
It's not going to resolve anything. So I believe strongly that it may seem very threatening, like Senator Johnson, the interview Anthony, I think Dennis reference, I listened to as well. Basically, that was a threat. That you're not coming here to focus on development. You want to bring war crimes, go business. The thing you're calling for is not a threat, but so that kind of thing. That's a threat. Okay, so if you believe that you're not guilty of what people have been alleging about you, that you truly just came to liberate your people because of other crimes that were committed against them. You're saying one crime can be sufficient to address another crime, and therefore now there's justice. If you are innocent, why don't you just submit yourself to some due process, some kind of justice process, clear your name, at least justify your action, or clear the air. People who've been saying you are this monstrous person, you've done this thing, go and say, look, I didn't do it, and show proof. So I believe that the senator is not doing himself well, because Senator Johnson has now become the sort of poster boy for this war crimes code thing. So when he comes out and says these things, it's not helping his cause. It's really not helping. I don't know who's advising him, right? You show some kind of remorse, or stop justifying things, or go to court and present your evidence there, clear your name. Let's see what happens. But to say, let's pass this has already gone. It's the West that's calling for this. And there's some truth there too. The international community will now rest until Liberia has gone through some kind of war and economic crimes prosecution. Not wholly 100% for the sake of Liberia itself. Some of their own citizens were killed at the hands of our warlords. The records are there. And so if we don't value our own citizens, we're comfortable saying, let's not shake the bush because you pull rope will hold bush. Others respect their own citizens. They're not going to let us get away with it.
Yeah, Dennis, I just wanted to make a point there.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Salif, I don't know whether you got my point, really, because I'm all for the court. But I'm saying that we don't have a definitive statement from Bwaka as to his position. That's one. Secondly, that his actions have shown that he's not committed. I said for almost 6 years, he was whining and dining with Yuri. Yuri sees himself as a businessman, but we all know we have our own suspicions about where he got his wealth. And then to join with PYJ in order to win the election also demonstrated his lack of commitment. And I also raised question about the Senate. That a lot of these guys that are sitting there already, they are wanted, they have been accused of significant corruption, economic crimes, and stuff like that. So my point is, when it comes to economic crime, there are things that Bwaka can do today. Let him do it and show the commitment instead of waiting for, because you're going to pass a law, the Senate got to pass it, Bwaka got to sign it, that couple of years. And there are things that he can do that will not take a couple of years. It can happen today. For example, I mentioned the issue about our passports that were sold. He can commission an investigation now.
Yes.
He's not doing that. The Reverend Chairman spent $365,000 without accountability. He can commission an investigation now. So those are things he needs to be doing. Then when he start talking about war crime, economic crime, then we will believe that he's interested in accountability. But he can't leave that and be pursuing something that is almost 2-3 years in the making when there are things he's supposed to be doing now that he's not doing.
Is it part of the ambiguity
I agree with you, Dennis.
about?
It's not mutually exclusive, though. I agree with you that President Bwaka, there are things that are low-hanging fruit, there are laws that already cover, there are courts that have jurisdiction over certain matters that haven't been handled, even economic crimes, some of the economic crimes and things like that. But to suggest that you ought to do this first before you go to that, I think that's why I have a problem with that logic. But I do agree with you. You have to demonstrate commitment. And those who support President Bwaka, they will tell you if that video is true, if some of the things that we're hearing come to pass, then what other commitment are we looking for? This is action, it looks like. This is the process.
Let's look at this, and I'll come to you, Mr. CA. And we are all for war crimes code, especially those of us who personally suffer, right? I mean, we can just start to count how much we've all suffered. I mean, from Guinea to Ivory Coast to Nigeria to Ghana and all that one. We can, besides the loss of lives and property, right? And how our lives were. I mean, every time I call my age, I want minus 10 years when I sat down, get playing Ludo, right? But let's look at it, right? When wars happen, and based on what the war makers do, people can easily forget it, right? So take, for instance, if Taylor had come after the loss of life of 250,000, have Taylor turned the country into, Sweden, we probably wouldn't be talking about this. Correct, Mr. C? Secondly, if we have, let's say, 5 billion now, are we better off if that 5 billion was to be used, for the intended purpose? We have from Harper to Robertsport paved with 6-lane highway, laying internet, water, and electric cables in there with that 5 billion. And with that, I can really be here, and through Cisco telepresence, I'll be teaching some classes in Dudwicken, right? Wouldn't that money be better served doing that than putting that into maybe getting Prince Johnson in jail?
Dennis, I will not be satisfied. I can speak for myself. I certainly will not be satisfied because human life is so precious. You are a Bible guy, I'm not a Bible guy. And so you will tell me, how important human life is, that even Almighty God said that, hey, thou shalt not kill. That is the moral law. And so when that life is taken away based on senselessness, and in fact, the person who is the victim has done you no wrong, maybe because that person is from that tribe and that's the only crime, which is not a crime in the first place, then I will be talking. If you look at the time when Ellen Johnson Sirleaf took power, to now, we're talking about a little over 18 years about that, right? And for the most part, our budget has been around 500 million, right? So you multiply 500 million times, probably, let me not make it 18 years. Maybe let's put it at 16 years. The 5 billion we're talking about now, we spend more than 5 billion or $10 billion in Liberia. Where are we? We can't even go to the southeast. Our new president is talking about no car gas, talking 45 days now, right? No action's been taken. Is he going to fulfill that promise? I'm making a point to say that, Dennis, even if we have spent $100 billion, some people, in particular, will be asking for the War and Economic Crimes Court because there's no justification whatsoever why Prince Johnson has to kill somebody, all right, allegedly, why other warlords have to kill their fellow citizens. No reason whatsoever. It is not justifiable. And so all we are asking is, as the governor concerned upon it, let there be some form of judicial process so that these people who feel that these are just allegations can have the opportunity to...
Mr. C, I'm not disagreeing with that, but take, for instance, my hometown of Dulucan was destroyed, was burned down, right? So the people who did it, if you can build now, if you can build that town with modern structure, if we have money to do that, will you rather take that money to say, okay, the people who burned it, let's come and put them in jail? Or which one will be more satisfying? Which one is going to, because you can, the people that are gone, I mean, we're so sorry, but we can bring them back. But if you can build that structure, it's going to help the people that are living now, then going to get what they call it, Noriega, and put it in jail.
Then it's almost like you sounding like, or what the scenario you're trying to pin here is, I think something I heard from you or somebody when Dr. Sawyer said, well, let's change peace for what? Corruption? Correct me if that was what he actually said, right?
Trading corruption for peace.
Okay, trading corruption for peace. Dennis, I cannot trade anybody's life because the first thing is, these things you are talking about, these are things as citizens we are entitled to. That's why we have government.
No, I'm talking about the limited resources. We have this money. Why can't we put it toward building the lives, transforming these people that are now we call Zogos, instead of going after, war
and I'm saying, Dennis, we can do both because if we don't serve a deterrent for this kind of heinous crimes that was committed, you will know that we'll have a vicious cycle of impunity as we have now. Is because we have not put a process into place to deter others from engaging these kind of ugly violence, right? So we are saying, I'm all for that. I want to see $10 billion being spent on the Southeast Road alone. I want to see $50 billion being spent on education alone in Liberia. So even if somehow as a nation we could, let's say, raise this money, I would still be asking for accountability. Asking for justice, Dennis, is so important. I don't think we should exchange justice, for roles, for education, and all these things that you are thinking about, because these are things we should have as a country anyway. So we can't say all these things are more important than getting justice, or let us forget about the violence being done by others, and then let's change that for economic development. No, I disagree.
Mr. Duopo, you talk about, and you use the word drag. If we drag people, we sounded more like Mrs. Taylor, right? So the court is to, dispense justice, is to adjudicate, right? So, but when people start saying when we are dragging people to court, we're putting some negative connotation to the whole court process, don't you think?
Well, I don't know how negative that can be. If you are arraigned, in front of a court. I mean, technically you have been dragged there. You're not going there by your own will. You have
to say, see, my hands are clean. I didn't do it. You can exonerate yourself because back home in my town, people used to take sasewu just to clear your name. So right now, people are going to the court to say, I didn't do it. There's no proof. My hands are clean. And then when the court set you free, you are free indeed. Now you're living like a free man.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the judicial system is there. I mean, everybody is adjudged, innocent until proven guilty before the court of law. I know the whole thing about war crime code is kind of very emotional. People bring their emotions to it because of what happened to them, personally and corporately. We all suffered during the war. We all had close relatives, friends, loved ones killed. Not just people who were killed, but some people who were maimed. People who today they are indigent. I mean, they are fatherless, motherless. Some women they are widows and men widowers. I mean, so the whole country, our whole society has been, I mean, fractured by by the war. So like I said initially, how we go about the dispensation of justice is critical. I mean, I know the sentiments, can kind of overflow us, but in a legal parlance, there are rules, there are frameworks that we have to make sure that these things are carefully crafted, and we can see a path, the finality. But if we rush into it based on politics and based on the whole the whole notion that somebody is promising you $5 billion for you to pursue this thing, for you to prosecute this thing because of a $5 billion your government is going to receive. I don't know how true that is, but that has been something that has been, I mean, simmering in the press. Baga has been promised $5 billion by, I don't know, international people. I don't know which government per se, but I'm sure it's coming from the West to make sure that this thing is, finalized. But hey, my take is there are other players too. Externally, I talked about, external forces, multinational corporations, non-state actors who funnel arms, armaments in Liberia, who practically finance this thing, and like Mr. Salim talked about the TRC. In a TRC report, Ellen said she shouldn't have stood for any political office in Liberia. But did that happen? No, it didn't happen. She became president for 12 years with the support and backing acquiescence of external actors. So we always talk about the duplicity of our international actors, and how they kind of want to micromanage us and make us, part of their fiefdom. So we got to be careful.
So
my whole
what do you advise?
my whole thing is, we all want the finality of this thing. I mean, this thing has happened more than almost 35 years now. The country has been in limbo. There has not been any kind of judicial settlement,
Right.
any reparation to people who were victimized. Because jail establishing the court, but you got to put money aside too for those who were victimized. Because there will be reparation. I don't know. There will be some settlement. For the aggrieved. Some kind of way that we can at least compensate people for their losses. These are things that we got to think of as a country, as a society. And not because this thing is being kind of superimposed, we're going to rush into it. Let's make sure all the landmines are cleared, because I know the international community, I know how they operate, I know their motivations and stuff, So we got to be very, very clear on these things. The very people who sanctioned the TRC, a TRC report said that who participated in the war shouldn't have, stood for political power in Liberia, and that was circumvented by the very people who, were the protectors of the TRC process, because of their vested interest. So this thing can kind of boomerang. It can ricochet in many different ways. So I want us to look at these things, in kind of frames. As a policy guy, I always look at things in frames. So that's my take on the whole issue.
Thank you, Mr. Salif. And if you're just joining us, please, the number is on the screen so you can join the conversation. We have a few minutes to close. 605-313-6004. The code is 791-403 #. One of the casualties of what we're talking about here is a 11th grade student today was arrested in Grand Bassel he went to the ghetto and he was smoking. They say he was smoking kush. So they arrested him, as you can see there. His name is It said the Liberian Drug Enforcement Agency Grand Bassa Detachment has arrested 11 grade students of the Bassa 7th-day Adventist High School, identified as Ken Wilson, for allegedly smoking kush in Buchanan, Grand Bassa County. Mr. Salib, is this one reason why this war crime code we need that?
Dennis, before I answer that, so the question you are asking, Anthony, this is really well documented in the transitional justice, this new discipline that sort of emerged over the 1990s to early 2000 and so on, with human rights and these civil political wars around the world. It's the dilemma of states that are grappling with justice, that are grappling with reconciliation, that are grappling with post-war reconstruction, nation building. So this sort of moral equivalency of where do we assign resources? Do we assign resources towards democratizing the country, moving forward, or do we assign resources toward holding people accountable, preventing impunity, and so forth and so on? So that is well-documented research out there. Different countries have grappled with. Liberia is not the first. I can name more than a dozen countries that have done what we're attempting to do, or some of what we've done. Secondly, in the TRC recommendation, some of what I think Mr. Duopo was mentioning in terms of reparations, what do you do with victims? It's just that the commission recommendations haven't been implemented. The commissioners are all around us. Thank God they're alive. They want Commissioner Shekhar Fumba Kone has passed. May so be blessed. All the other commissioners are around. They can tell you. They recommended processes, post-TRC processes, how to address victims issues in terms of reparation, in terms of memorials and things like that. So there are all kinds of outcomes that came out of the TRC process. It wasn't just recommendation for war and economic crimes. I encourage you to read the report. It's really comprehensive. And there was even a diaspora report that documented Liberians in the diaspora's experiences and supported the commission's work in Liberia with that report. So it's not just what happened exclusively in Liberia, what the commission did. The Liberian TRC was the first that systematically engaged its diaspora population in the way that no other truth commission had done before it. The second thing is we didn't have an amnesty component in our TRC on political basis as was done in South Africa, for example. All truth commissions are not the same. It just depends on the nature of the conflict. They're investigating on the history of the conflict and how the conflict was perpetrated. And so these are some of the points I just wanted to put out there. In terms of your last point about just some of the impact of the war, it's no brainer, and we can see it. You look at the country itself. What is the state's inability to provide adequate service to meet its own social contract to citizens tells you that our infrastructure, our state system was shattered. I mean, the mindset alone, the mentality of people, our fundamental moral fabrics of society, the family system, for instance. I mean, we can name all kinds of things that this conflict wreaked upon us. So my take is, if anyone feels that they are targeted by those who are advocating for a war and economic crimes court, I don't understand the argument. What do you go to court for, right? I mean, you want to clear your name. You want to tell your story, just like the victims too need to have an opportunity to tell their stories properly. They told some of it to the TRC, but in a criminal context, in a judicial context. So yeah, these young people who are on drug rather, some of them, the ones that are adults now, the so-called Zogos, were babies. These were adolescents, teenagers who were conscripted forcibly into an armed force of some sort, drugged so that they could do whatever the commanders asked them to do. Some of them, their children are now following along, who are in their teens, smoking, doing drugs and such, instead of being in some kind of fancy university somewhere studying to better their own lives and their countries and their communities' lives. So we're seeing the consequences all around us. Whether us in the diaspora, some of what we deal with here, some of the challenges we see in our communities here, and back at home as well.
Thank you. Let me read a few comments here that you can respond to. Elijah Ija said the diaspora population finance the world. Would they pay for their crimes too? Sam Waller is singing praises to President Bouakai. Thank goodness President Bouakai is committed. Exactly. He also said no president. Exactly. There has just never been a Liberian president with the backbone to commit to this body of work. Mr. Sia, do you see that commitment from President Bouakai? You are muted.
Thank you, Dennis. I said no. We have not seen any demonstrated commitment from President Bouakai. President Bouakai is someone who is hard to understand, and so I will wait to see if he will succeed with it. He may succeed. I want him to succeed. If there's anything that I desperately want President Bouakai to succeed on, is this issue of war crime courts. Not because I want it, but I think it's good for our country. Accountability is good. I want us to use justice as a foundation for all of the things that we want in our country. And why I don't think President Bouakai should be trusted here is the fact that, whatever he does it with this understanding of what it will benefit him and not necessarily the country. Why did President Bouakai choose Jeremiah Cohn? It's just because he wanted to be president. It was not because he wanted a vice president who will be competent on day one to inspire our country and provide excellent leadership. It was not on the basis of that. He wanted to be president at all costs. Cohn from Nimba, Prince Johnson being connected to that will bring the numbers, and he will be president. And that's why he did that. Now, if you look at Uri, when he was dancing with Uri, it was about the financial benefit, he was going to get from that. All right. And in no time, he dumped Uri by the wayside. Costa, was bringing in the numbers. He was this propagandist who will put the name Bouakai out there. And when Bouakai realized that he had Prince Johnson down and Costa was irrelevant, he dumped him by the wayside. It's all about Comrade Bouakai, what he gets. Look, Prince Johnson is alleging that there is, I think, $300 million being promised or being made available for the establishment of the war crime court. Mr. Bouakai might be dancing the sun now because of that $300 million. I don't know how true it is, right? But this is a man who is desperate now to pay roads to make sure that no car gets stuck in the way. So he's looking for the money. We are aware the position of managing director at the National Port Authority was bought from President Bouakai. And the reason that happened was he wanted money for his campaign. He wanted to be president. So he didn't care wherever the money was coming from. He was going to take the money. He took the money anyway.
Those are allegations, right?
And those are allegations, and I agree. And I know my inside sources are telling me, confirming to me that this actually happened, that the president, through his son, took that money because they needed money to campaign. Dennis, isn't that a reality in politics? When the politicians want money, they don't care where the money comes from anywhere. So President Bouakai now, Denkin and the Bouakai took that money. And what happened? He followed through on it, right? And that guy is at MPA. The chairman of the party wanted that position. He didn't get it, so he had to go to the president's house to protest. This is serious stuff here.
And so that's a wild allegation, though.
And that's a wild allegation. This is what I do. And I don't care how anybody feels. This is something that I know. I will be accountable for what I say. Yeah, these are my words, not anybody's words. All right. So that is why President Bouakai now allegedly did. So if at all there is heavy money promised for the war crime to be established, and if Bouakai thinks he will give him the needs that he wants, maybe he will follow through. But again, it's about Bwaka and Bwaka only. I don't know whether Bwaka is anybody to trust when it comes to following through on things that are nationalistic. Maybe it would be this one. I can only hope.
Alberto Davis Nemo say, can you people give the mayor a chance? It's just been 2 months. Today I spoke with one of the Bwaka supporters. He couldn't be here. He said, I'm looking for 6 months. If after 6 months Bwaka does not deliver, I'm going to come back just like the way I left WIA and joined Bwaka because WIA did not deliver. He said, I'm going to come back. And so, I mean, isn't it fair, Mr. Attorney Freeman, to at least, the government is still forming. Can we just give some time? Because this criticism, Alberto have a point here. Give some time. Let the government, everybody in place, has Dr. Douglas will also always say, this is just a thank you cabinet. So people who were, according to the chairman, in the proverbial purple water need to be rewarded. And after some time, this will go away and President Bwaka will get back on course. Also, Alberto, and I will come to, Alberto also said, focus on Liberia is becoming one-sided because she doesn't see Bwaka supporters. Okay, I want to look for that comment because trying to hold us accountable here. I like people holding us accountable. I feel like everywhere is kind of one-sided these days. There are no GMB supporters to counteract some of the harsh criticism. Mr. Attorney Freeman, you can answer those 2 comments and then we'll go around the room to close.
Well, in Liberia, people are not too accommodating to thoughts that are not, to their liking. But some people are non-political, so they are just going to call things the way they see it. And I guess for the people who are partisan, they will have a problem. I think he deserves time to show that he measured up. But we have a parable in Liberia. They say when chicken white, a white. There is no other way to describe it, just white. There are some significant missteps that are giving some of us reason to be uncomfortable. Aside, for example, when the Supreme Court issue a stay order. I mean, what kind of society are we living in when the Supreme Court issue a stay order and the president still gives people a letter to go ahead and do what they are doing? Come on. So those are the things. For example, Bwaka wants to be a leader. The first place to show leadership was when his party chairman misused $365,000, holding him accountable. So what do we need to wait for 6 months for that? He can hold him accountable to it. That's why I have my doubts that he is committed to all this war crime talk, because he has not said anything. We just have a video, we listen to it, but he has not said anything. And if you look at his actions, you have reason to doubt. He danced with Uriel for the longest, and then he danced with Prince Johnson, for the longest. So when someone like that who has danced with Prince Johnson tell you I'm for war crime, you have to have your doubts. So for those who want to wait for 6 months, 1 year, you can wait whatever time. But I know in Liberia they say when chicken white, is white. So if I don't see the signs of good governance, like for example, you have tenure law, and I always mention I have documented at least 4 cases: the Selena Posse Mappy case, the Asa Jackson case, the Martin Colley case, the Clark Martin case. In 4 of those cases, Supreme Court has confirmed and reconfirmed that there is a legitimate state interest for tenure position. And the man still goes about and he just flouts the laws and he really doesn't care. So what do they want us to say? I mean, for me, I'm pro-Liberian. So I don't see things in CDC terms or UP terms, and that annoys some partisans. But I'm very sorry, I just have to say it the way it is.
Thank you. They say, if you like the girl and you don't say anything, you close your mouth, you may end up carrying water for her on her wedding day. So it's better we talk now. Dr. Abdullah Dugle is watching us on the big screen, and Mr. CF, Dr. Dugle want me to tell you he disagrees with you 1,000%.
Wow. 1,000, that's a lot of zeros.
Isn't that obvious?
Tell us what's obvious about it. It's about doubt. You should be asking which aspect it is.
That's my part. We talk. It's
all right. But gentlemen, thank you. I think we had a very healthy discussion tonight. At this time, we're going to draw down the curtains. Always watch focus on. Okay, let me address. I think I responded to a better on Bwaka. People are not on. There are people who actually support Bwaka. Some of them have asked to be on sabbatical. They say President Bwaka is making some enforced errors, and so they want to give him some chance. So they want to take a break and come back after some time, just so that
after 1 year.
Yeah. So if you think, if you can defend, if you want to be a part of the conversation in support of anybody, please don't hesitate to drop us a line here at Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We present the most holistic perspective anywhere, ever since 1822. You'll get it right here. So please feel free. Gentlemen, I want us to go around the room to close on the two issues that we discussed here. Let's be as brief as possible, at most 2 minutes, starting with our global analyst. You're closing, sir.
Mr. Dovo, you're our first analyst.
Oh. Well, Dennis and Anthony, I'd like to thank you guys for the kind invitation extended me to be here with these fine gentlemen who, some of the best minds, from our country. It's a good way to engage in the discourse. The discourse, like we always say in philosophical thought, the discourse is intended to have, to reach the optimum of truth. The whole essence of the discourse is to try to reach the optimum truth, and we should always strive for that. And somebody was saying that we criticizing Bwaka. It's not about criticizing Bwaka. I know like we said earlier, they just been in office for the last maybe 45 days now, and we gotta cut him some slack. But in the same token, there are some excesses, there are some missteps, that we see. These things start very small and they kind of, incremental in a way that it becomes, so unacceptable, in the public arena. And for some who are watchers of the public affairs, we will always, chime in here and there. People have accused us of being against Weah when we kind of criticize him on occasions. But we do it in the public interest, we're doing it for the public good. As students of history and leadership, is our binding obligation. We're coming on these kind of public, arenas. We got to espouse what we believe, what we know, based on experience, based on our own foresight and all that, But on the two issues, let's go back to the Bwaka. I talk about his ambiguous leadership, and sometimes ambiguity is a key leadership trait. It's not a bad thing in itself. Sometimes it just shows how a leader can navigate. To flex himself in a way that he serves all sides. So maybe that's his leadership mantra, and let's see how that plays out in his 6-year term. But I believe that he has to work on some of the internal stuff that his handlers are dealing with. Make sure there are good guys there. The guy who's the director general of the cabinet, he's a personal friend of mine. Very smart guy. He's the ultimate backroom, consummate backroom dealer. I'm sure they will put some things in place that, the situation at NASCORP would not, reoccur, because that was one of the lowest points. If he's kind of sanctioned that was one of the lowest points in his very, early presidency. So I hope they work on that. And coming to the war economic crimes thing, like I said, and I was still maintain that we have been very, very ginger in how we move towards this thing.
It's been
It
30 years.
brought
How
us on
ginger you
our.
want us to be?
But in ginger, in the sense that we got to make sure all the frameworks are in place. We got to make sure that we see a finality and a timeline, all that stuff. It shouldn't be kind of rushed. It shouldn't be hush push. I don't believe that it should be superimposed. It should be something that the Liberian people themselves, want, clamor for. It shouldn't divide our society because we have a very, very, I mean, the society it's highly polarized. You strike a little match, it gets inflamed, and we are at a critical juncture in our national life. We
Thank you.
get coming from war. The economy is not doing anything. It's teetering. There's no jobs. People, we just showed that young kid who was arrested for smoking cooch. I mean, that's a deplorable thing. But how do you arrest? Maybe it's a minor. Where are some of the things that we put in place to rehabilitate people like that? It's not. And that's something that maybe it might not be his own. It might not be his fault. He comes from a broken family. He's trying to navigate life. So those are some of the public policies that we got to develop in all facets of our national life. So I hope that this discussion can continue. We can bring more people, more, experts to the table and see how we can better our country. And we can even advise the president, unpaid advisors. He needs to broaden his, I know sometimes the inner cycle can be small and monolithic, but you got to, what Abraham Lincoln talk about, a team of rivals. Maybe that's what he needs. We can advise him on different aspects of the public policy that we have in the country. So thank you so much. And my wife been signaling me that food getting cool, but I want to thank all of you for the time. And focus on Liberia is, I mean, first amongst equals. So happy to be back. I know I took a little hiatus, but it's always a pleasure to be back. With you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And for those who said we are harsh on Bwaka, listen to this very clip.
What Bwaka told the money for?
Yeah. Bwaka nacha, Bwaka na baby, Bwaka get money. Yeah, you got your first man. You got your first man.
Oh.
You got first kid.
So just a jacket to ask Bwaka where you got the money from? If that is for?
Yes. You don't got no right to ask Bwaka na baby. Huh?
Bwaka na baby. Anthony Freeman, you're closing.
Yeah. I think the spectacle you show on video, was very sad. I feel the senators introducing themselves or being introduced as senators and then interfering in executive matters shows a violation of our constitution. I think the senators need to refrain from it. It just underscores the fact that Bwaka was said to have set up a committee with senators only to handle nominations, which is very sad. I also think that Article 18 of our Constitution says all Liberians have equal opportunity, should have equal opportunity for work. These people who are occupying this position, they may be CDC partisans, but they are Liberians. Even if you're going to take job, manage it in a more hospitable manner, give them notice, work along with them to have a smooth transition. Don't take the business approach, the hostile takeover approach, you just go there and just take over the place and say, well, I'm here now because I got the cash and stuff like that. I also want to see Bwaka actions more coinciding with his words. It's one thing to put up a video, we talk with Alan White. It's quite another thing to show by your actions where you really stand. And by his action, all that years with Ure, all that dancing with PYJ doesn't inspire confidence that he's committed to this whole war crime thing. And I like to separate the war crime from the economic crime, because with the economic crime, you don't need anything extra. You just need now, even in some instances, you don't even need any investigation. You just need to take an investigation that was already conducted and ask the prosecutor to look into this matter and see whether it can go to court. So there's so many things that he can do now instead of pushing the can down the road by saying, oh, let me go form war and economic crime. When you have the power now, you can order investigation. He promised he was going to do a comprehensive audit. We have not seen that. And days is going by. So maybe they will come back here after 6 months or after 1 year to see whether he's done anything. But I think the ball is in his court. The smaller action you start to take, it builds momentum. So if you leave the smaller action in hope that you will do something big, you might not have the momentum to do the big thing, So I'll leave it on that note.
Thank you. Mr. Sear.
Then is those who are saying we are harsh and we should call the Unity Party a slag. They don't know the Unity Party we're talking about. That's why they say that. Unity Party had an opportunity to rule Liberia for 12 years. Experienced, dedicated, they know governance, they understand governance. And but then sadly, there was the very Unity Party that many Liberians have to even come to their rescue. Remember the George Center campaign? Remember the Unity Party blue plastic bag with tally sheet in it? Unity Party did not have a war room. A party that contested in elections did not have a war room. It took some Liberians who are now Unity Party partisans that went to the rescue of this rescue mission, set up a war room for them, for Unity Party. That war room helped to deliver the victory. So when we are criticizing Unity Party, we don't have a Unity Party. These are Liberian citizens. Unity Party is one of the most reputable parties in Liberia. They have the experience, to help us. And that is why we are holding them accountable. One thing they will not do, they will not hold themselves accountable. For example, Luther Tapper, the chairman, as the chairman of Unity Party, make a decision along with his lieutenants that they should take $1,000 from the $5,000 from each of the 73 electoral districts in Liberia. That was not demanded from President Bouaka. President Bouaka said, hey, let the money be used for the district to celebrate. Unity Party make a decision that they will take $1,000 each. That $1,000, no accountability as we speak. The next thing we saw was their chairman protesting at the president's residence for a job. This is the very president that shows up to NASCORP, all right, along with senators, introducing themselves, or he introducing them as eminent citizens. So look, we need to remind these people of their responsibilities, that they have a responsibility to us as a people to govern us well. There are people in West Point who are living difficult lives. We're talking about LEC, the electricity situation today. Liberians are suffering. There has not been a decisive action from the Unity Party as yet. So what time you want us to wait for? Liberians, now, Comrade Salif mentioned that earlier. The fire incidents in Liberia today, or in Monrovia specifically, has become overwhelming because of the current situation. And you want us to wait? How many houses you want to see burned down first? How many takeovers you want to see illegally by people nominated to tenure position before you want us to say something? Someone said our mouths are not guns. At least we're not like Charles Taylor and Prince Johnson and other people who shot at other Liberians to take away their life jobs because of government jobs. All we are trying to tell the people we elected who are serving us is serve us well. That's all we are saying. I don't think we're being harsh. We want a better Liberia. That is why we say what we say. War crime court, I'm looking out to President Bouaka to deliver. I would have loved to see a resolution coming from the president's office to say, yeah, this one came from the president's office asking for war crime court. It's not forced that he does that, but someone who is projecting himself that he's committed to war crime court, it should come from him. I wanted to see Unity Party people introducing that bill in the lower house, that this is from the president, and we support the president, and we're going to follow through on this. And we didn't even see anything on the Executive Mansion website concerning the war crime court. But I want to believe they will come to that. But wouldn't that be too late? We hope. But I don't want us to hope hopelessness, because we've seen this movie before with the war crime court thing. Previous leaders fail us. I don't see how Bouaka succeeds. I want him to succeed. So let him do the right thing now, not tomorrow. Thank you.
Mr. Salif, you got the last word.
What was the other slogan? Hope for hope, or
change for hope.
Change for hope. Yes.
No, hope for change.
Hope for change. So Also, you scare me with a hope thing just now. Because, thank you, gentlemen. A good discussion tonight. Very two important topics. We all come here, as has been stated tonight, we all come here as public intellectuals, as concerned Liberians, to share our 1 or 2 cents on things we may know, a thing or two about, just to contribute to the public discourse, to contribute to our country's well-being and our fellow citizens' well-being. We mean well, I do, speaking for myself. For any administration that comes to office, I want to see them succeed. Because when they succeed, our people succeed. I want President Barker and his administration to succeed. I know a lot of people, some friends who and relatives even, who are in very high, holding high offices and things like that. So we do want them to succeed. But I do agree, any new administration, you ought to hit the proverbial ground running. You ought to set the tone. If you miss an opportunity to set the right tone, it's difficult to come back to fix that, because that's what people remember. And so in some of the points that we raised, so for example, the tenure issue, you can't just seem to be doing things against the law, because the legislature enacted legislation to enable these institutions. A previous president signed them, therefore that's the law. Now, if you think it violates the Constitution, you ought to go back to the legislature. There's a legal procedure to set that aside or to vacate that law in order to, if you think there's violation, for instance, of the president's removal authority, just like the president has appointing authority, you ought to address that. I've said that quietly to friends and people I know in the government, and I'm saying they here. We can't just pretend that they don't exist. You can, appoint new people to a tenure position. On what basis even? So, for instance, you appoint a new person to a tenure position. Is that new person a tenured official? Or someone, I think I saw Joe said to me when he was on the show, I asked a question. So, well, the appointment letter didn't say that. Well, that's a lawless society that operates like that. Like, we're not a autocratic, totalitarian society. You say, oh, the appointing letter didn't say that. But the law says this office ought to be placed in a special category. If you don't want that category, go to the law and fix it. So, writ large, that ought to be addressed. Otherwise, that problem will linger, because we don't want future president or any president coming and just doing whatever they want. They don't like somebody today, they fire you, send new person there, and willy-nilly. That's not how a constitutional democracy operates. So that matter, they have to deal with it. The second thing about War and Economic Crimes Court, I believe this is something that's long overdue. We can't just pretend that our war didn't happen. And by saying let bygone be bygone, the TRC was the option. It wasn't an either or. That's not how the act that created the Truth Commission. That was not what was stipulated in that. It didn't say you have a Truth Commission or you have a War and Economic Crimes Court, which is why the commission, based on what it found, recommended an extraordinary criminal tribunal for Liberia. Has happened in other countries that were more fragile than Liberia, and they've survived. They're even doing better. Like I said, I can name a dozen different countries and contexts. So no one should scare us that trying to hold people accountable, to establish that if you engage in certain acts, there are consequences. No one should scare us from doing that, because the country will not burn. People will be held accountable. Even if they have passed, their memories will be debates in some way if they were found. They're not alive to go to court, but if investigation led to somebody's culpability, the record will say so. So I do believe it's not, again, either or we put money towards development or we go to War and Economic Crimes Court. We can do both. We can find support in the region, international community that are who are interested in our welfare to say that help us prevent this kind of thing from happening again. Never again. That's really where I stand. Never again should we go back to what we've been through and the ramifications that we're dealing with today. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. On that note, we want to close the broadcast today. I want to say thank you, gentlemen, for your time. I want to thank our viewers, those watching now and those who will watch later. Until then, we close with our song that says, "We are all Liberians." Have a good night and God bless you.
We are Liberia. Liberia is our home. Liberia people. Liberia.